podcast where we explore the latest trends and innovations in learning and development. I'm your host, Inna Horvath, a learning strategist at Eli, and today we have a very special guest joining us, Diana Oliveira. Diana is a seasoned training manager with over 15 years of experience working across various capacities in both private and public institutions around the globe. Hi, Diana, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you, Ina.
So this is a very special episode titled Not Just Another Training, where we'll be discussing how to personalize learning in global companies, shifting employee perceptions of training, and adapting methodologies to diverse learning preferences. So stay tuned for an enlightening conversation packed with actionable insights. So as usual, we are going to start from rapid fire questions. This is the same set of questions that we ask each and every speaker of ours, and we summarize the replies by the end of the season. So if you're ready, let's get started.
Yes, I'm ready. Let's go.
Fantastic. So first things first, what book or a resource can you recommend on L&D or educational topics?
So I would recommend a resource because things are changing all the time. So probably to follow L&D Shakers. They just shared some days ago 800 plus L&D resources. They are organized, categorized. So I think it's a good resource to use.
Yeah, that's a wonderful recommendation. I've already got so many insights from that library. It's really packed with all the knowledge you have. Yeah. Okay. Who do you recommend to follow and invite to this podcast from L&D experts?
I recommend to follow Rita Mendes. She's a senior people specialist at Present Technologies. She has a strong background in L&D, but she's always very passionate about how learning and development promotes organizational well-being. So I think it's a very good combo.
Yeah, sounds wonderful. Okay, can you share a memorable failure or a setback in your L&D journey and how did you overcome it?
Early in my career, I worked in Mozambique for 5 years, and I was working for a company that was Portuguese, and I was a trainer, and they sent me a PowerPoint already made for me to use in a training session, and I read it. It seemed fine to me. And I went to the training session and I learned the importance of personalization to the audience because although Mozambique and Portugal both speak Portuguese, there are words that mean different things in these countries. So it was very awful to understand that in the middle of the training session. But I learned that always need to adjust to the audience and to the country or culture. So it was a very good learning experience, although painful.
But also unexpected. I wouldn't believe, to be honest, that within one country, within one language, you can have so much crucial differences, right?
Yes. There's even, for instance, in Brazil and Portugal, there is even a word that means girl here, and a very, very bad word in Brazil. For instance, it can be this different. It's very crucial that you really understand what is the audience and these little differences, even in the same language sometimes.
Yeah, that's mind-blowing, but super important. Okay, next question. What question must be asked on a job interview for L&D specialist?
Would be, can you give me an example on how you use data to improve a learning program? Because data is very important. We cannot only enhance our programs only on our opinion. So we need data to help us do that. So I think it would be a very good question.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's one of the biggest pressure points in L&D. How do we prove with quality data the benefit of our program? So that's a wonderful question to ask.
Yes.
And last but not the least, if you had just one piece of advice for someone who's just starting their career in L&D, what would that be?
I would say that you need to really make an effort to understand how people work, especially each audience, and you need to use your empathy and your active listening. It's very important to do a program that really meets people expectations and the people needs. So that's why I said we need data sometimes to assess what is important. So really understand people, really listen. I think that is a very good starting point and also a little bit of curiosity, because things are always changing, and you need to be always looking for trends, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And adjust to your company's needs as well. Like that you mentioned in the first question, not the book recommendation, but a resource. So, because times are moving super fast. But coming to the main point of our discussion, which is personalization, and this is the topic that I'm most eager to discuss with you, because I think now we are closer whenever to being able to personalize content in the easiest way possible, because 5-10 years ago that would be a totally different story. But what I'm most curious about, especially coming from your background experience, how do you personalize learning in global companies? So in terms of catering learning experiences to individual learning approaches and preferences and goals in vast companies where localization is a challenge even. So personalization is quite even a bigger topic, right? So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think first you need to have like a core curriculum, like what you think it's very important to maintain all around the globe, for instance. But you need to be able to adjust to each region. So each region should be have a little of autonomy, and it can adjust. Also, to personalize, you can do it with no technology or no AI or something like that, but it's a very, very big effort. So I think it would not, for a global company is not the best approach, because you have lots of things that you need to adjust. To start, for instance, the language. And sometimes we can do a different video lots of times with different languages. But there's always other type of personalization and today it's very important. It's not just a nice to have feature, is a must have. So people are more demanding, and they want training to be interesting, and they want it to be adjusted to them. So for instance, the format, maybe I prefer to read a book and you prefer to see a video, for instance. So it's fantastic if you can choose the way we learn better. Also, the knowledge of a topic, for instance, in a company, you can have Excel training, for instance, and it's important for me. If I'm an advanced person, I want something that is more challenging. If I'm a beginner, I want something that is adjusted to me also. So technology can help us doing that. It's possible to craft some paths, but it's very limited. So we must rely on technology to help us nowadays, I think. I think that's for global companies, that there's no other way around. I'm very interested on having videos made with AI, and especially the ones that you can change the text and the video adjusts. That's very important for me, because I think content is nowadays is always changing. So what is we have lots of contents that are always not up to date, and we always running against time to this is not right now, we need to adjust the video or something. And that's a very big challenge, because I think some years ago it was different, like the content would be the same for some years. Now in 6 months the content is not up to date, so we need to be much faster. And I think we need to I'm not sure, I'm still learning on the options are, and still assessing that. And I think that's a very important thing to think first. But I think we have lots of interesting things nowadays, and we need to go after that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And it's very interesting how in global companies, and I've had this situation when content changes so fast, just as you mentioned. So it's much easier just to prepare instructional manual for 30 pages. And once it's done, you update it. But you can't possibly make a studio-like video or create an e-learning course, maybe with the help of some vendor or some instructional designers, because sometimes you're just overwhelmed with other tasks. And because of this, you go with the easy path and you do, Word documents that we all shared. And well, there is no conversation of personalization in this respect. And I totally agree that technology here is a huge help. But in terms of coming back to the global companies, there is certain standardization in terms of the content. For instance, a tone of voice, or in general, some topics that are very basic, like compliance, informational security, and they are expected to be done in the one way, because these topics are not very flexible. You can't really personalize the content there. What is your opinion on that? Is it mission impossible in terms of personalization?
I think some things are really like you said, compliance stuff and legal stuff. I think it's you cannot personalize a lot, but you can personalize, for instance, the format. Sometimes we have very boring videos that people just see to say it's done and is compliant, but they don't learn, and we want them to learn. So if you can adjust to the audience, I think that you not only have that compliancy check, but you always you have the people knowing what you want them to know, and I think that's more important than doing the check.
Absolutely agree. And on my experience, not just as L&D, but also as an employee who comes to the new company and must do compliance training. And usually it's, well, and you understand that you do it just for a tick, just to fill in the checkbox. It's done. Okay, let's move on. But you need to look at the goal if you really want your employees to get to know something. Moving on to the training part of the learning. So there is a group of L&D specialists that suggest to remove fully word training from L&D. My opinion, I used to be an athlete, so I have nothing but positive attitude to training, because for me, this is the work that you do in order to achieve some knowledge or gain a skill. So for me, it's not about the word, but it's about the content. And you have I know, a lot of wonderful thoughts on this topic as well. So what is your take on the word of training, and if we should really continue using it or not?
Yeah, I think it's the problem is our fault, L&D professionals. We gave the word a bad name. I think we bored people to death with all those long trainings and very monotonous trainings. And it's not, the problem is not the word. We can change it, but if you continue to do the same thing, we are going to arrive to the same place. So I think the thing is, you need to start thinking about training or learning, doesn't matter the word, as something that is made in order for people to want to do that. So we have in every company, I think, some trainings are mandatory, and they are mandatory because if we don't do it mandatory, nobody would go. So I think we need to start thinking that if something is well done, and people will want to come. If it's something that I look at the training session and I think this can be very helpful in my job. How many live events we go on LinkedIn that are free, but nobody said for us to go, and we go because we think that this can help me. So if I look at some training program and I think it's going to help me, I'm going. The problem is sometimes we don't adjust to the audience, and we need to think that employees are changing and the world is changing. And sometimes now we are in the growth of social media and we have limited time. Everybody's running. So we need to adjust to that. We need to have training that is available anytime, anywhere. We need to adjust the content to be like micro-learning, frequent short time capsules of knowledge. Short videos, something very interesting, almost like a reel. We need to adjust. The training must be seen like engaging, interactive, almost like a memorable experience, where I learn by actively being involved. So the problem is sometimes we just stop. We are in a training session and we're just listening to the person speaking. After half an hour, we're not listening anymore. So I need to be actively involved. So it has to be two things, like it needs to be important and I need to see that is going to improve my work or help me doing my job better. And I need to be engaged. So I cannot be like 3 hours listening to someone speaking, just that.
The problem is not with the word, I fully agree. And if you look at ourselves, like our experiences, learning experiences, for instance, if you want to go to learn how to cook sushi, you go to YouTube and you choose a pretty video which shows you the ingredients, how to do it, and the end result. And it's all very fast and in the manner that you are able to perceive, recall, and then later on use in action, right? So this is the same recipe of the successful training, I guess. The content should be engaging, but also create a practical value. But do you have an example or maybe some advice? Because coming back to our favorite topics like compliance or information security or something which is harder to explain to the employee the value, how to make this kind of topics engaging? What do you have any expertise, or maybe you've had some interesting cases on that?
I think we can incorporate different technologies like gamification, microlearning, immersive technologies, even augmented or virtual reality. For instance, imagine if you have a security session about security in a building, for instance. You can have a virtual reality where they can go into they can go and they need to check where's the exit, where is the extinctor, or so some things that you want them to learn what to do in a situation. You can have that. So the sky's the limit, the budget not so much. So you need to adjust to what you have, of course, but you can always make it a little bit more engaging. The thing is, you need to always think what is the best way for them to memorize something that is a little bit boring, like some rules for security, and how can I engage them to think about that. So you can also, like gamification would be like less expensive probably, but you can do that and mix it with the traditional methods, of course. But I think that's the goal, and is possible for every situation, I think.
Yes, absolutely. So the idea here is to put yourself in the shoes of a learner and think what's the easiest way for him to remember the information that you need them to remember. So don't go from information, but go from the learner, right?
That's what I said about what is important for a new professional. That's what you need to really understand about people and how people work and how people think, to adjust. So it's always possible to adjust.
It's a very interesting conversation, and I think that this is the ideal way of learning and the ideal way of teaching. But sometimes I also do realize that in global companies, again, one of the topics of our today's conversation, right? It is harder to secure the buy-in from stakeholders.
I think to involve employees in this, you need to think about them before you start making a program. So you need to involve employees in the planning process and offering clear links between training programs and their career. So I think you need to make a career progression. So it's like you cannot say, oh, here you have a very good steak that I think it's very good for you because it has lots of proteins and they are vegan. So you need to adjust to what they want. So you need to ask them first and understand what's really important for them and what would be important for them to do their job better. So that's, I think, will be the increase of the engagement and the buy-in. I think the biggest mistake companies make is trying to guess what people need to do their jobs better, what they need to learn. So I think that's the main thing. We need to focus on people. Yeah, exactly. We need to understand that people are already learning somewhere else if they're not learning in our company. As I said, that's why we have so much events on LinkedIn and even in person, because people go because they want to go and they want to learn. But sometimes the problem is the meeting the expectations. Sometimes what we offer is not what they need.
And it's a really great example with LinkedIn because you mentioned that most of these events are free and we still go there. So it doesn't have to be very expensive. And with the VR and AR, it's not usually the case. The case is the value, right, that we provide.
Exactly. That's why I think it's more important. Yeah.
Well, last but not the least that I wanted to discuss with you is something that, well, previously, obviously, we've had a conversation and you mentioned the phrase that really hooked me. I loved it so much. So you said that there is a wonderful quote. If you don't learn the way I teach, I need to teach you the way you learn. So coming from this, I have a very logical question. How can educators and trainers adapt their teaching methodologies to accommodate diverse learning preferences? We know that right now there is no such thing as learning style. It's a myth. Everybody knows it. But still, we do learn in different ways. And global company again, right?
Yeah, I think what is important, that's why I think data is so important. You always need to have some data to back your decisions, because if not, it's just I think it went well. I think it didn't went well. So you need to have data to support your decisions, and I think you need to adjust. So sometimes I hear some trainers saying things like. Even when I was a trainer before, I heard some colleagues saying, "Oh, I taught them that. I talked about that. I don't understand why they don't know it." And I say, "That's always on us. Is we need to. If they didn't understand, that's our problem. We didn't adjust. Maybe you told what you said it was right, but for a different person. So we need to always." Be evaluating our programs. So we need to be very aware if it's on a good path or no. So I think it's that's the main thing. We need to always be relying on data and not in our personal feelings. And like that, we can adjust every time it's needed.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the question that the specialist may ask you, how can I get this data? Because we can, we usually rely on NPS, but these are vanity metrics and they don't provide that, like, do you like or don't you like? It's very blurry. It's not the data. How can we get data and what should we look at when we are creating training programs? So what can bring us the value?
Well, I think that kind of data, and I think I use it also, and I think it's good for having a global perception. But I think, and this is very personal, that is important to have them write something that is free to. It's not just 1 to 10, because, for instance, you can have a training session online that they rated very low. And this happened to me one time. It was very low. The NPS was very low. But when I looked into it, into the why, when they say what can we do better, and they write it down, there was a problem on the internet. So the videos were not going properly and something like that. So the problem was not exactly the what was prepared, was just a question of the internet. So imagine if I just look into the NPS, I said, oh no, this is not working. Let's just forget about it. So we need to have something. And one thing that can really help us, because sometimes we have 10 people and it's very easy to look into those questions. And sometimes we have 100 and it's very hard to read everything. So that can be also, we can also ask some help from AI that can read for us and make us a short resume, though, so can help us read all through all that. But I think it's important for people to give some, not only quantity but quality also. So we need to have data that is a little bit more personalized, of course.
Yes.
I don't think NPS deserves everything.
Absolutely. I love the approach. Just ask them, right? And see what they have to say. Because usually if you do prepare a quality training, people are excited to share what they think about it, because they see when you really put an effort. When you just send a file with maybe pictures and screenshots, you're not going to get any feedback, probably. That's why we don't usually collect the data from trainings that we know are the negative word training, right? Just as we discussed.
Yeah. And I think even when we ask people to evaluate, you need to really make a clear link from why you should do this and what is in for you. So you need to explain. It's very important because we want to adjust the training sessions to your needs and to what you want and what you prefer. So if you explain that, it's easier for them to be able to answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, with that, I think that we've covered everything that we wanted to and everything that we planned, and a little bit more even. So I'm really grateful for you, Diana, for these insights. It has been really packed with practical topics, and that's what I loved about our conversation today. That's a wrap for today's episode of EdTalks. We hope that you enjoyed our conversations with Diana Oliveira just as I did, and gained some valuable insights on how to transform your training programs. From personalizing learning experiences to making training more engaging and effective, there are many takeaways to implement in your organizations. If you liked this episode, be sure to subscribe to EdTalks on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. For more updates and resources, follow eli.io on LinkedIn or the QR code that appears here. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to bringing you more expert insights on our next episode. Bye.